Aloha out there in TV, radio, and internet land. I am Jason Schwartz, your host here at the Neutral Zone, MauiNeutralZone.com. Wherever you are in the world, we hope to have you tune in with us. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Mac Lewman. Mac is over in a neighboring island, Oahu, and he's running for governor. This is the 2022 election cycle. Some of you see under my name that I'm running too. I'm in Kahului County Council, and everyone in Maui County, all three islands, votes for all the seats. So you get to know who I am through seeing me with other candidates and knowing me over the years. But Mac is relatively new to the island, and he's taken a big step. And Mac, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
You are on the ballot as Clyde McClain, Lewman, we know you as Mac, but on the ballot, Clyde McClain, Lewman,
Right.
Democrat Party. So you have an August 13th election, if you will. The primary is really your spot to showcase. And if you win one of the top two spots, you go on in November. There's some big money, big interest running against you. What made you decide to run? What made you think I'm going to do this?
Well, I offhandedly made a comment to a friend in Nebraska on a phone conversation that I said, I think I'll run for a political office because it's very simple here. All you need to do is make a sign and stand out on the H1. And we kind of both laughed about that. But a couple of months later, when I went to register to vote, after I registered, I went upstairs to the city council and because I wanted to volunteer to do something less than governor, run for governor. And the secretary had a city councilman come out, and he was kind of surprised. He gave me the name of my district representative. I sent her an email, no response. I sent her another email, no response. So I just said, well, heck with this. I'm just going to run for governor. And so that was my thinking. That was 3-4 years ago. And so as time went along, I just, once you put something in your mind like that, it's even though it seemed like a joke at the time, it stayed, there was a serious note in me about that, about doing that. And so I just kept thinking about it. And now when I registered, I had to get 25 signatures and pay a small amount of money to do this. And it's just one step at a time. I've just kept doing it. And now here I am. And as I go along, I think of things that I would like to see happen. And number one on my agenda is survival. And I call it as surviving into the future for the Hawaiian Islands. And I felt geographically, this was a very good place to be, given what's happening in the world today, being very isolated, being in the middle of the ocean, what I call the center of middle of the ocean, the center of the world. And so it's just been kind of a series of steps coming this way and thinking about surviving. And one of the things the most important thing to me is food. We don't grow enough food here. So I call food is freedom. And before we can be free of our dependence on the mainland, we have to start growing more food. So that's one of my big things, is to grow food, create food boxes, take yards out, remove parts or all of yards. There's been a lot of talk about drought conditions here and talking about watering your lawn only once or twice a week. And it seems to me that we'd be better off watering food crops than grass. And so I think we need to shift our focus to surviving. We are coming up on 8 billion people on the planet. And supposedly this year we'll pass 8 billion. And in 1800, after 200,000-300,000 years of Homo sapiens on this planet, we reached 1 billion people, and that was in 1800. And then by 1900, we were at 1.5 billion. You know, in 1950, we were at 2.5. And at 2000, we were at 6. And now we're at 8. And the planet can't handle this. We're supposedly we're going to peak out at around 11 billion, and we could go up to 12 billion.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
That's a lot of people, and I think a lot of people know that we're getting more people and our resources are being depleted. How does that relate to what you're doing as governor? I mean, you're right. We got lots of people. Here we are in the middle of the ocean, center of the world. We need to be independent and self-sustaining, because if there are problems anywhere else, we're on our own. And
that's right.
And
That's
so
right.
those little garden boxes may be fun, but
Yeah.
we need major programs. So I'm guessing that as governor, I'm really putting words into a direction as your governorship. You would be aggressively finding ways to implement these programs, and I imagine give incentives. And I say that very lightly, but what I found in my experience at these elections is me and others, yourself, we have ideas that are, I think we all recognize as common sense, that we all say, hey, we need to grow our own food. Oh, we need to do this. But when you get to the government, it's like, okay, I'm here. The government is either we're telling people what to do or we're making laws and directing things. So I'm only bringing it up as a general thing, because I always wonder, you know, I want to go in with good intentions. Some of the people that I see in running, they accuse each other of not creating enough programs that are making the change. They're going along with the old status quo, moving along an old system. Do you see anything in what's going on that you feel is unnecessary, you want to ramp up? Food security, you're absolutely, I totally agree with you. And I'm sure you can see, most of our audience is going to agree, hey, if I can grow my own food, man, I have to be doing something, because we're stuck out here. We only get, I don't know about Oahu, but here on Maui, I think it's something like 15% of our food is from here and the rest of it's from somewhere else. So absolutely major deal, food. I agree.
Yeah, very, very major. And, you know, right now on the mainland, there's some food shortages happening, like with baby food. That came up overnight, you know, and grocery stores don't have big warehouses. You know, they rely on distribution and food coming in every day. And we could run out of food in a week. We could be in trouble. And, you know, with what's happening in Russia and Ukraine right now, what's happening on the mainland with people dying, being shot, mass shootings, the world is slipping into chaos. And I blame it. I don't want to blame it, but I say population is a big reason for that. Overpopulation, you know, there's a energy, there's a vibration to crowding, to being, there are too many people here, you know, like I think it's like 83 million people go to bed hungry every night in the world, or 83, what is it? I got it written down here, sorry.
Well, that might be 83 million in the United States, but it could well be even more, I'm sure. Zillions of people are hungry.
Wow. People are hungry.
I know.
People go to bed hungry every night on an empty stomach, and people drink contaminated water. It's something like 2 billion people drink water with feces in it. We're just not keeping up with what we need to do for a healthy world. You know? So that's my objective, as focusing on the state. You know, some people said, well, why didn't you run for a city council or something like that? But I'm not interested. I'm more interested in the survival of the entire state of Hawaii and keeping it from slipping into chaos like I see the rest of the world, like it's happening in the world.
Have you any specific, I mean, just really thinking, as governor, you would be kind of leading policy, but also making any big changes that you think that we need to do to accomplish some of the things you're talking about? Or, I mean, there's so many facets to being governor. I'm just really looking at how and you would go about that role, what your thinking is.
Yeah, well, I think last year the state budget allowed 1/3 of 1%. That's 1/3 of 1% for agriculture. We need to do better than that, and we need to do improve all the agriculture technologies. You know, we need to do different kinds of farming with and growing crops that will grow well here on the islands, because the islands can't does not grow all crops evenly. Like there aren't any grains here to speak of, you know. So but I think the technology, we need the technology and people experts. And I know there's already groups working at that. You know, there's some groups that are offering to come to people's houses and pick up crops when they're harvested, if people grow crops. We need to expand on that. So we need to plant food. We need to plant fruit trees. I think about 10,000 more fruit trees. Fruit trees take 6-7 years before they're producing a crop, but we need to do it, and we need to get started on that. If everything falls apart, we need to be able to, like if we could supply 70% of our food supply, I think we could survive. If things got tough, you know, we could grow, we catch fish. And,
have you been to some of these neighbor islands?
Not recently.
The only reason I'm bringing it up, when you talk about food security, we have groups here on Maui like Food Security Hawaii, and the Farmers Union is here teaching and setting up lots more farms, and Hawaii Organic Farmers. Right. We here on Maui, I guess it's more visible here that this thing about food security is much more in our face. In Oahu, it's, to me, I think of it as New York City or Los Angeles with extra humidity. It's a city, but yeah. Here on Maui, we have open lands. Mahi Pono, which was a pension plan in Canada for teachers, bought 41,000 acres and is doing what you said, a major plant of crops. They've already planted better than 1 million new trees. And there are all kinds of things they're growing. And some of the environmentalists think they could be doing more and that they're monocropping and each all kinds of stuff. But some of that is going on. But I can imagine in Oahu, you almost don't see it. So what we're doing in Maui, you know, they all have to make profit. God knows where that product will go or how we can commandeer it and get it to be staying here, and have to find ways of incentivizing, you know, those growers to bring their product, keep their product here. Yeah. Any thoughts on how you might do that, or what you can lead a charge on that kind of effort?
I would plan to be, I'm a very active person. I don't like to sit at a desk all day long, and I would be out there participating, you know, working with farmers, maybe not like plowing and planting, but I would be out there connecting with people. And I think that I think we can just raise the consciousness of farming and make it an island effort rather than just isolated farmers doing the best they can. Farmers are under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, and it's not easy here to work the soil. It's a lot of work. And so I think of things like providing different types of tractors or equipment for farmers that they could share amongst different farms in different regions. You know, fertilizers, bringing in anything that's helpful from the mainland, and like I say, new technologies.
I am again only interrupting because I think if you would come to Maui, you would see that you will find tremendous support for those ideas here, and they're already kind of beginning, and some are aggressively in action right now, because your ideas are right on line with what we really need to do. I'm wondering, again, I'm only questioning it because I question myself. We have all these good ideas, and if we had the money, you and I, we'd implement them ourselves. So if we don't have the money and we're looking at the private sector and we're talking about good things, but if we don't have the money, we can only influence them so much. It's based on their profit and their heart and whatever. Obviously, profit's definitely in there, but what can we do? And that's why I say legislatively, or what kind of things, like we talk about gun violence or things like that. Here in these roles of government, I often thought I want the government to help what the private sector is doing, that the government says, yes, that's good, we can make it better in this way. Or the private sector says, we need help with this or that, or we need to fast track this thing because the needs are so great. And if we can fast track it, we could bring the price down and make this affordable. If we aim, that's how I'm looking at this government thing. You know, someone said, well, you're sort of green. Why are you so fiscally conservative? I don't know if it's called fiscally conservative or balance. We got to find the money somewhere. And I'm always screaming at private sector. You can see how effective that is. Private sector does what makes them money. Now there's the government. What can the government do? Well, let's see, President Biden, he wants to stop Russia. And so he does things. And now people are saying, whoa, look what it's doing to our country. We weren't prepared to do that. So you guys are hearing, it's like a maze of what do you do and have everyone think or many people think it's a good idea. I hope I'm not breaking up the train of where you want to go with this. I'm really looking at this whole election thing in a way of exploring what, people say, I don't want to vote because it doesn't make any difference. Well, why doesn't it make any difference? You're running because you want to do something. And I'm reaching because I'm also reaching to myself in saying, okay, you want to sit there on the seat, and as people bring things to you, you'll know what to do, but something's sparking you inside. After thinking about it as a joke and you started to get serious about it, something sparked you. Something like here on Maui, the big issue could be there too. Housing. Oh my God. Rents are crazy. There's not enough rents. There's not enough fairness with what they have as rentable places. People are worried they're being blackballed and sidetracked, and HUD doesn't have enough vouchers and not enough properties, and Steadfast Housing is closing down because they don't have properties, and that's an issue some people run on. So what you said about population and food, I'm just fishing, really, looking for other important things and things that you might want to do to make those changes.
Well, I mean, I have radical ideas, like I think small communities, like farming communities, is one way to go. I see farmers working out on a piece of land by themselves, in the middle of the afternoon, and I'm like, how do you do that? And I was recently at a mushroom farm in Waimanalo, and there was like a group of people, young people, and they were working hard. It was hot and sweaty, but they were all kind of just talking and jabbering back and forth and kind of joking around, but they were having a good time, and I think that's kind of the way it has to be. You can't expect one farmer to go out there, like on the mainland, they got all this big equipment and they got nice flat land and healthy soil and run these big monster tractors and grow tons of food. It doesn't work like that here. And I think like communities, small communities, living within, a certain area. Like I've been to China and I've seen out in the countryside, like a cul-de-sac down a little lane with 4, 6, 7, 8 houses. And each one of those houses has the lands divided up around them, and they work together. They share equipment, they share ideas, and they kind of work to help each other out, So I think that's the kind of concept that I would like to see more of here. I would also like to see the state, the state owns more land than any other entity. And I don't know how much of it is agricultural land, but I would like to say, would put it all to use and basically give it or set it up so that it's not expensive. You know, like some of these estates own hundreds of thousands, billions of dollars in land, and a lot of that's agricultural land. You know, and agricultural land, you can't survive, you know, paying $500,000 an acre or $100,000 an acre to grow crops. It just doesn't work, you know. So somehow we have to subsidize farmers, and it's more important than oil, because we can run out of oil and survive, but we cannot run out of food. So we have to.
I'm hearing, I'm just knowing that land you speak of, someone owns it. And if the market rate, it is, let's say the market rate is $100,000, may not be the place to do farming. And you're saying, well, that's the only farmland we have. Well, the control of that is not us. You know, that's to me the biggest issue, especially on an island. We can't just put that farm a little further out where land is cheaper. We have to deal with precious land that we're fighting for its use. Many people want to make housing there. Yeah. And you're saying, well, yes, we need food. And the food is a constant need. There's so much need, probably more than our land. And we could grow it all, but by the time we grow it all, half of us will be dead. Yeah. I mean, seriously, that's what we're talking. We're so far behind in that, you know, this has to be a direction. You know, it's like when they talk about the goals. We're going to have no electric or no gas vehicles by 2035. Great goal. How are you going to pay for the new vehicles for the people that are struggling to figure out how to pay their high rent, or they can't buy their present things? So the system is, I don't want to say being forced to change. It's exploding or imploding because of what you said earlier. Too many people, people that think they're living in a dream world. But the reality is, if I help you and you help someone else, many people say, you're just a fool. You're a dreamer. I think our whole society has to change its whole attitude, or we're all doomed to die a slow and torturous death. And the whole earth the same way. We don't really wake up to where our priorities are. I want to say, you're not young. You're like me. We're here, and our experience shows us that all this running around and all these things we do called life, maybe we've taken too much from this planet. How are we going to survive? And food is one of them. Absolutely. What about housing? How's housing doing there? Are rents pretty high in Oahu? I imagine.
Oh, yeah. They're high. They're too high. I mean, we need to, well, I have ideas about housing, but we just have to learn to live differently. You know, we don't need thousands of square feet. Like right now, being retired, I have like 400 square feet. In Hawaii, that's plenty, you know? It's like I have a little lanai, I'm on a second floor walk up, I have a great view, I'm in Manoa Valley. I'm very content. I spend most of my time, 80% of my time out of here. But also, you know, most people, psychologically, we repeat the same thing. The thing we did yesterday, we do today, like 80, 90%. You know, we have the same thoughts from one day to the next. So it's really hard for the average person, especially if you have children, family, trying to survive, to do anything other than what they did the day before. So it takes people like me, like you, who have the time and the experience to get out there. You know, like some of the people that are running for governor, I see they have families, you know, they have children, they have a wife. It's like, you know, like Dr. Josh Green. I mean, he's a nice guy. I've liked listening to him, but he's a doctor, you know, and it's like, I don't think he's going to get out there every day. Like for me, I would go to the schools every day because we need to start working with children. We need to change the direction of our thinking. You know, like we need to get into more meditative activities like yoga and like Tai Chi. And we need to be okay within ourselves and not rely on the outside world providing us with our happiness. You know, there's a measurement of happiness, and we're not up there very high in this country because we have to struggle and work so hard. If we change our thinking so that we're aware of self-awareness, you know, and with little children, they can do this sort of thing really well. Like with schools, I'm against private schools. I think that they're very elitist, and I don't see much difference between elitism and racism. And I think that it is detrimental to the children that go there to start feeling like they're better than, and for the children that don't go there feeling like they're less than. And that statistically, the children that graduate from the elite schools like Punahou and Midpac and Iliolani and Kamehameha, they get better jobs, get better placement, but not because they're any better educated. It's just that they have some status, you know, that gives them like a opening to higher and better positions. And I'm totally against that because these islands need to come together. And we can't come together when we're all creating these divisive programs, you know. I think that the public school system should be much better than what the private schools can provide. And I think that the public schools can do that. And I'm just looking around. I know there's like 40,000, 50,000 children going to private schools. And somebody said, well, where are you going to put the schools? You don't have classrooms. I'm against classrooms. Here on an island, we could have covered outdoor spaces, and I'm against sitting in rows and sitting in columns in a classroom looking at each other's back. We have more diseases coming up in the future we need to deal with. We should not be creating closed spaces. We should be opening up spaces. The same with like.
Where were you before here? Where were you
Oregon.
coming from? Oregon. And what kind of work were you doing? I mean, as you're speaking, I'm listening. When I hear that, I think of what came to mind was my Hawaiian friends who say, hey, we Hawaiians, we were here, we had lots of people, and we had different kind of customs and different kind of housing. We need to bring back a lot of the natural, successful Hawaiian plans for housing and for planting. Is when you talk about the open spaces, that sounds like you're ready to make some changes to laws. That's why I'm coming back again around to, as governor, where will you put your emphasis? So go ahead. I'm just
I'd make it illegal. I would make it very difficult to build on agricultural property, to develop agricultural property. Any place you can grow food is sacred and needs to become sacred. And I wouldn't allow people to just sit on property and hold it. If you live on a farm and you don't produce food, you know, for example, if you had 5 acres and if you aren't producing on 3 acres, you're going to pay a higher tax. You're going to be penalized for not growing food because we can't afford to waste people just to sit on land.
Well, we have those kind of rules in Maui, by example. Ag land, to be designated ag, you must have so many trees or so much ag producing on your land. And we've seen a lot of people try to skirt the issue, planting things that truly allow them to be residential use, and the crops they grow may not be as valid for food source like you're talking about. So maybe we could tighten up that. Did you know that Maui actually passed in the last election, or the council set up for a Department of Agriculture? So we here in Maui, it sounds like we're running in the mindset ahead of what you're seeing going on at a state level. And
maybe so.
So, and you'll be happy to know that some of those people that were here creating those kind of plans are going to be running for state offices from Maui, because they're also frustrated, just like you, at what they see happening. And I guess that's why they're jumping. They're thinking their legislative reach should be at state level rather than local level for some of these same ideas.
Yeah, those are my feelings exactly. I mean, I see a lot of small programs that they don't have much underneath them. I mean, they're little pockets of people working together trying to make something happen, and they are making something happen, but it's not enough for what we need in the future. And we don't have time to let things just, pick up inch by inch, year after year. We have to make leaps and bounds into the future.
You're sounding like me, because, and I keep thinking it's because what would we trade to get some of this wisdom that we've spent all these years acquiring to gain another 50 years? So we're now, okay, you guys, you're 20, you're 30, you're 40, get a move on here. It's like, where were we as a generation? Dropped the ball and went toward that self thing. We really I think we dropped the ball. I've been talking about this for years, and people think I'm a whack job. Still talking about environmental things. You're still, and now everything's exploding. They don't remember that we've been talking this a long time. They now on their own trajectory. Do you know that there are ways of taking water out of the air effectively? And so we can leave that open space that you thought was ag. We can use it for other things because we can grow things in all kinds of environment. We don't have to ship our power. We don't have to ship our water. We can create them more locally. These kind of things, in my mind, need to be encouraged through tax credits and real incentives to get these things happen. Because if we're going to speed this up, those that have the resources need to be strongly encouraged to do things. I keep thinking, when I was in real estate, I remember they talked about the power of the government for eminent domain. That means we like your land and think it is important for the people. Thank you very much. We're going to acquire it. Well, if I was a landowner, I wouldn't really like that. How about another option called equity sharing? Let's find ways to do, whether it's ag or whether it's building, partner with that owner so that without even moving anything, their credit and financial ability, coupled with others that are in the building process, financial ability, we could get a lot more going on. It has to be somehow encouraged. And that's, again, as governor, me and the state and the local level, I want to create incentives. But if I create an incentive and it's not supported by you at the state level, sadly, state law trumps, I hate that word, trumps local decision. We here in Maui, an amazing election we had a few ago where we decided we don't like GMO crops, and it actually won. But then it was overturned because, oops, it's not federal or state law. It's decided. So all that effort came to naught. So all this local activity needs the support of someone like yourself at the government level, supporting and creating a framework so that, again, I like to think we on the outer islands, maybe because we've had more breathing room, we can see and look at Oahu and say, we don't want to build like that. We don't want to do it like that.
No, you don't want to do that.
That's why I'm bringing it up to you in realizing that your ideas have a lot of support around the state. I'm just always playing with that thing about, so what kind of law can I pass that's fair to everyone, but clearly creates an incentive? And it's a difficult, there's an expression I learned called, sometimes it's difficult to remember that your original intention was to drain the swamp when you're up to your ass in alligators. And we have alligators here. Well, whether it's the traffic and the roadways and not enough housing, inadequate water supply, food, like you said, no, the pride in the people to come out and help each other and change our society to be an example. I've been talking about it a long time, and I'm glad to hear that, you've been talking about it now.
Yeah.
This is a very, the world doesn't always conform to my view of the model in mind. What other things were you thinking? I mean, I'm exploring your areas of interest as governor.
What I call this is communityism, not communism, but communityism. If you have a community, if everybody feels a part of the community, that's why we're very divided here. I mean, we have respect for different cultures and ethnicities, but it's not enough. We are not a community. The first part of a community is being human beings. Underneath that, we have cultures and races and ethnicities, but we have to focus on the humanity aspect of who we are. We have to create a community. When you have a sense of community, when people feel a spirit of community, they're willing to sacrifice. They're willing to make sacrifices. They're willing to make contributions to help their community when they feel a part of their community. And that's why I'm so focused on schools. Having one school system is to bring people into a sense of community. The other thing about community that I think is important is cleanliness. This island is just littered with garbage. And I've gone to parks like over in Pearl City, and the park, there's not an inch without some sort of garbage pressed into the soil, chicken bones and gum wrappers. And it's awful. And the plastic in the ocean, we have nanoplastic along the beach over in Kahului Beach. And you can see this. I took pictures on my blog. Nanoplastic gets into the rainwater, gets picked up as tiny, tiny particles of broken down plastic. It rains into the soil picks it up, goes through the roots, up into the fruit of the plant. And we all have plastic running through our blood veins now because of nanoplastic. So we need to focus, we need to create a sense of community, and that we all need to share in this. And the only way I think, to do that is to start being proactive. Like, one thing I would like to do every day is to go to a school, a grade school, a junior high or high school. Every morning would be one thing I would do to kind of get people to acknowledge that they are part of something. And once they sense that, they will do the right thing. And I think when children know these things, they will press their parents to do the right thing. When children understand about going out and picking up garbage around their school, putting on plastic gloves, getting the little things you pick up things with, when they start doing it, they will influence their parents more than anybody else. And so children are an important part of changing the world we live in, and starting, right away. Mindfulness training. And like I say, I like sports. I love sports, but there's some sports that are they aren't really mindfulness sports. I mean, in a sense, people would argue. I mean, I'm a big football fan, but I think football is a very horrible sport, causing brain damage and other injuries, And boxing is another sport that is interesting, but it's too aggressive. Like, if you take all the martial arts, they're all meditative. They're all meditative practices. And if you have a practice that gives you a sense of well-being, that's all you really need in the world. You need that, and some food and some water,
Well, if you and I agree, then we can do it. But as a government, it's like all of our recommendations, like you just said, I think that we should abolish private schools. I think not abolish, but in this next election cycle, I think you're going to have a lot of resistance to things like that. And, or like when you're talking about going into the schools and educating, there are programs like that. Many people would argue we just don't have enough money to afford to send people in. And monies are so stretched. How do you get $1 to go $5 direct? You need 5, but you got 1. And
I'm not really, capitalism has run its course. I'm totally against capitalism, you know, and like conservatives, one of their ideas is, what is it? Capitalism, where they privatization of everything, privatization of healthcare, privatization of police, privatization of education, because with privatization, there's a way to make money for people that have money to invest in these things, to manage them. Like there's helicopter services on the mainland that I've seen that somebody's injured, they need to go have a flight to some other place, and the bill is $86,000, you know, and their insurance pays $15,000 of that $80,000 flight bill, you know. So that's what privatization does. I read a little cartoon that said your house burns down, the fire department comes and puts it out. That's socialism. That's what some people would call socialism. Your insurance company denies the claim. That's capitalism, you know. So this is all wrong. Everything's been turned upside down. Capitalism is turned into a very greed-based way of living, and we all are stuck and sucked into that. And that's why Hawaii has an opportunity, because of where we're located geographically, isolated. We can do something totally different than the mainland. With 1.5 million people, we can make a change. If you have a small community of, say, 500 people, it's very simple. With 300 million, like on the mainland, 330 million, it's next to impossible to make this kind of changes. But I think here, creating a sense of community, if you can do that, if people get behind it, you know, because I know there's a lot of divisiveness, even in the different ethnic groups, you know, but I think by participating in cleaning up the islands, having a day once a month or whatever to close down the highways and go out there and just pick things up, go on those beaches, pick things up. I see people doing it, like you're talking about with growing food. There's small little groups of people that do take this on, but it needs to be a statewide effort. And when you take the children, involve children, that will go right up the tree to their parents, and their parents will be forced to look at it, you know, because the kids will be into it, to little things like that. But cleanliness, as they say, is next to godliness, but it also changes our outlook. If your car is filthy, when you clean it up, you wash it, you wax it, vacuum it, it feels really good. You feel good about yourself having a clean car. Same with your house. If you clean up your house, we need to clean up the islands. That's my priority. Food and cleaning up the islands. I don't like capitalism. I'm into sovereignty. I would like to see Hawaii separate from the mainland. I know that's a big, huge step, but I would like to see, I think Hawaii could be of more benefit to itself, to the mainland, and to the world if we're a separate entity. We don't have a horrible history like a lot of countries do, like Russia's history, like American history, colonialism, all that stuff. But we can do that. We could be a place of solution conferences. That's what I call them, to have solution conferences. This could be a gathering places. People like to come here. We need to take advantage of what we are, where we are, because people all over the world know Hawaii. It needs to become more than a surfing destination or a tourist destination. If we become united and a community of people doing the right things, people will come here and people will support the islands. You know, they're not, anyway.
No, I'm listening to you. I did an interview, a guy, he told me, you're a dreamer. I've been dreaming this for 30 years. I am wondering if we are on the wrong planet. At this point, you know, I've been talking about this stuff for 30 years, and here I am now running as a litmus test to see if anyone here has been listening. You have big media there. Here, before there was internet, everyone knew my face, and then internet comment, I kind of got diluted down. People don't know I'm that same guy that's been all these years promoting all these things. And so you and I agree, and we have a massive job in waking people up to their responsibilities in this idea of making Hawaii and allowing it to be great again. The Hawaiians, many of them would agree. And then there's the mechanism of how does that happen? Well, I think the first part you really identified. We all have to be better people and to get out there and be participating in these solutions. We can't expect to point at someone else and say, oh, there's where you find the housing solution. That's how you do the agricultural thing. Those guys and those guys. If we don't get ourselves involved, politics like this, to me, that means you are involved and interested. And in my mind, whether you become governor or not, your being out there is a way, I hope, of getting some of these programs identified, and then people will come toward you and they can really understand where you're coming from, and you can help being that champion. And if you're governor, I'm going to ask a lot of you as governor, because I'm a dreamer and I don't know how to force people into doing the right thing. It has to come from their heart. And my direction through is thinking that arts and music, do a show, have tickets, and then tell that audience how brilliant they were. Because of them coming to this concert, we're able to build that park. We're able to have cleanup in the park because we put on music shows to raise the money to get, see what I mean? Sort of an alternative advance, and people realizing they can do good, and maybe they'll realize they can do that good, and they don't only have to have concerts and do music, but if that's the way it's going to be to save our world, that's my direction. Because I'm wondering whether we can legislate. I'm hoping, but I don't know. How do we legislate the conscience of people to get out and be supportive of you, whether it's governor or otherwise?
My lamp just fell over.
That's okay.
Well, I think, no, I agree with what you're saying. I think community, but also I'm for support a unicameral governance. Nebraska is the only state that has a one-party system. There's no Democrats, no Republicans. There are because they're part of the United States, but within the state, their legislature is made up of senators. Each senator is elected from a district. That senator is responsible for that district. The whole state doesn't vote for a district senator. So the legislature is made up of senators. They have committees, they meet, they discuss, then they present to the body, and they vote. There's no philosophical basis to fight each other like Republicans versus Democrats, They just object just because they don't want them to win anything. So when you only have one party, there's no winners and then also the public sees what's happening. You can't blame it on the other party because there is no other party. It's your responsibility to get it done. And some people argue against this unicameral because they say they need the two parties to offset each other and to really struggle to get the best deal. But what happens is a party that has a good idea, they have to give up things, and the other party gets to slip nonsense proposals and bills into that in order to agree with something, and it takes too long. It takes forever. With a unicameral government, you get things done quickly. And there was a unicameral, and each senator is responsible for his district. He can spend more time out communicating with the people, and he can get feedback from the people, and the people feel more like they're part of the government.
I can tell you when I'm listening to you that you need to move to Maui because, number one, we're much more in touch with the ideas that you're sharing here than you may know. That, I've been talking about district voting for 30 years. Did you hear when I started here? I said, we're in Maui and I'm running for council, and I'm one of 7 running in the primary, and I have to get known over 3 islands, and there's no TV stations here, and there's a few radio stations. How are we going to get known? Those that are known, those that have the names, right?
Have money.
So here we go. So I've been on TV for 30 years. That's why I say this is my litmus test. if on local TV and the people here know me, are they going to respond? Are they going to even know it or say, who's that guy?
Yeah.
Where is our direction going? I'm really proud of you for stepping up. It takes a lot to say I'm going to run for a political office, in my mind. I didn't do this lightly, and I know you didn't do it lightly.
I didn't. All along the way, I'm asking myself, what am I doing? But
I hope that you get more, I hope you get more forums and places to be able to put your ideas out and get the kind of support you need to make you feel like you're making some progress here with it all.
Yeah.
And I say, keep it in your heart. And I don't know what to say. I myself could get knocked down almost daily by the resistance to some of these cooperative. I say cooperative, they say, wait, you're changing the system. The system has to change. You got all these people. Don't you see that it has to change? But, like we say, education, there's so many different areas that need to change, and people need to feel their responsibility in new ways. I'm a little overboard here, but I know that your running is a really great thing because you get to put your ideas out there. Whether you win or not, it's a really challenge to get known over the whole state. You are, how many times are you going to be able to go to Maui and see the support that you could have here? Yeah. But I'm watching here. I watch politicians who are going to run for state. They do an alternative advance, and they're looking for which race is the one that they're going to get in, and they're going to be able to take it. Politics is not a fun game at that kind of a level. But our level is where the real ideas are shared. And I hope really I'm going to give you a chance to kind of do a summation here and then. But I'm hoping that you have the kind of good time out there that gives you the support that makes you realize that this was a good thing to have done.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to do. I think democracy is much more difficult than, say, a dictatorship. A guy just has to get a little army, take over, and then tells everybody what to do. If they don't do it, they just kill each other. So, but to do this, to go out on the streets and try to get people to believe in you, listen to you, that's hard. It's much easier to be a dictator, to go out and just, take over and say this is the way it's going to be. But I don't like that. That's why I like unicameral government, communityism, have a community of like-minded people going in the same direction. And that can't happen overnight, but it can happen quickly with the right leadership. And that's the purpose of leadership. Like what's his name in India took over, led the country, got rid of the British people peacefully without too many deaths happening. Gandhi, but he created a mindset, a concept that people believed in, and that's what got him the dream that he, like you talk about. He had a dream, and he created a concept, and he made it happen just by his leadership. People believed in him. So
that's a funny one. I think about that. There's a Hawaiian song called 1978, which you'll hear, written by Israel Kamaka Viva Ole, who passed away. And it talks about what would the Queen and King say if they came back today and saw what we've done with their paradise? Or what would Mahatma Gandhi say if he went back to India now and saw where they've taken his dream?
Yeah.
But it's because of people like you and the freedom to stand up and share your ideas that we have a chance. And hopefully we'll save what's that book? Let's say I have a friend who wrote a book, Saving the Cosmos Till Tuesday. He's
one day at a time.
Well, it's a fun struggle. Let me give you a spot for him to kind of say goodbye to our audience, but kind of sum up your campaign.
A spot to say, well, I hope I win. I would like to win. I would like to try to lead this state into a different paradigm than what we're doing. And if we just elect another person to come along and stamp and sign his name to bills that the legislature puts through, we're not going to survive. We just are not going to survive into the future. And we need to take radical change, but the people don't have to do that. It takes the leaders, that's my responsibility, to go out there and create an atmosphere where other people will want to support what I'm taking on. And that's what we have to do. You know, food, education, homelessness, money. And I even have a picture for, you know, sovereignty, where we have a system like in the United Kingdom, where we have Hawaiian king or queen, and then we have a governing body, and somehow they work together. I'm not sure how, but it could be done to satisfy the native issues, which are real and legitimate, you know. So, but also people that aren't native also have a right to be here, you know. So it's not like everybody has to just be together. We have to rise above our petty differences and become a community of like-minded people with a focus of survival.
From your lips to God's ears. I wish you the very best here in the election. August 13th, I want everyone to know, is the election day for people that are running now. We need to pass that primary barrier. And so, Mac, I wish you the very best. Remember, everyone, on the ballot, when you see Clyde McClain Lewman, that's Mac. And you're seeing his name and stuff on the screen. And his web address, which again you see, mac808.com. Go up there and visit and take a close look at what's going on here. And if you like Mac, no matter where you are in the state, you can vote for him. So I want you to know that.
Thank you.
Mac, thank you for being here on the show. I know it's a little informal and not typical kind of an interview, but I appreciate you being here and showing people who and what you are. And to me, that's what we're doing is all about, is sharing these ideas. So no matter who's in the seat, these ideas can move forward in the lips of the people and those that are in control, you know.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's been a pleasure.
Mahalo.
You're welcome. And all you out there in the television, radio, and internet land, stop back at MauiNeutralZone.com. You'll see lots and lots of candidates and interviews, and you'll be able to see I'm this same guy. So if I'm sitting in some seat, I think you know what to expect. It's much like me. In fact, I'm sure it's exactly like me. Mac, thank you.
You're
It's
welcome.
really been a pleasure.
Nice meeting you.
You're welcome. Good to meet you as well. There's my double shaka. Aloha, everyone.
Okay.
Take care.
Aloha.
Aloha.